Read Part 3 if you haven and number 39. Read it yet. As for the incident, it happened as follows. When the prince left the young girl in the cool house, he returned to the palace to prepare to solemnly welcome his bride-to-be. The Persian sage came to the garden to pick medicinal plants. Suddenly the sweet smell of perfume and other scents that the princess anointed reached his nose. He walked towards the fragrant smell, and arrived at the shady house. Here he saw a horse by the door, a horse that he had made with his own hands. Recognizing the horse, the sage was very happy. His heart sobbed with happiness because he was regretful and miserable when he lost this treasure. He approached the horse, carefully examined its parts and confirmed that it was still intact. Before sitting on the saddle and leaving this city, he looked back at the cool house, which was filled with musk. Perhaps the prince did not fly back here alone, the sage thought. We have to see who he brought back with him. He entered the house and saw a beautiful person, more beautiful than the full moon, more beautiful than the sunrise. The wise man immediately understood that in front of him was a noble young woman, whom the prince left here and then went into the city to prepare for the reception according to the king and number 39's rituals. He took a step forward and knelt to kiss the ground in front of the girl. The princess raised her eyes and saw that the person who came to see her was very ugly and deformed. "Who are you?" she asked him. "Lady," the sage replied, "I was sent here by the prince to take you to the garden closer to the royal citadel." "So where is the prince?" the princess asks. "The prince is in the royal palace with his father. He is preparing for her a solemn welcome and is about to come with a large group to welcome her." Looking back at the sage again, the princess asks, "Could it be that the prince could N&39 find someone else and sent you to see me?" The sage smiled, "Mistress, let me be angry at my ugly face and hunchback. If only the mistress knew the contributions I have made to the great prince? Surely you must praise me. It was no coincidence that he sent me to meet the mistress. God is ugly and deformed, so he cannot evoke jealousy in him. Otherwise he would have sent someone else to meet her, for he had countless servants and slaves, servants and retainers." Hearing his reasonable words, she stood up and raised her hand to him, showing her willingness to follow. "How are we going?" she asks. "You will ride on the horse that brought you here, mistress." The sage replied, "I don and number 39 know how to use it." The princess explained. The sage smiled again. He understood. Now the girl was in his hands. "You don and number 39 have to worry," he said. "We will go together. I know how to use this horse." After calming the princess, the sage sat on the wooden horse and pulled the princess behind, tying her tightly into the saddle. She thought he did that to ensure her safety. Then he turned the latch, the horse stirred and flew into the sky. The magical horse flew very fast, and just a moment later, the city was lost in the distance. "Why do we fly up like this? Where are the prince and the garden that you promised to take me to?" asked the princess. "Because you said that the prince sent you to see me." "Allah will curse the prince," cried the wise man. "He is very vile and dishonest." "Suffering for you," the princess exclaimed. "How could you violate your boss and number 39's orders?" "He is not my master," said the sage. "Do you know who I am?" "I only know about you through what you say." The princess answered, "Everything I told you was a lie. I am wiser than you and the prince. Because for a long time, I was very sad about losing the magical horse, the creation of my hands, because it was taken away by the prince. Now I have defeated him, I have got my horse back, and what is more, I have stolen her. Let his heart burn, as it burned mine. He never found us again. As for you, you should be happy and proud to be with me. I am smarter and more noble than him." Hearing what the sage said, the princess tore her hair, sobbed and cried out, "Oh, pain and misfortune! I have lost both my husband and my parents. Woe to me!" The sage still let the ebony horse gallop through the vast space, until they flew to earth. He let his horse land on a patch of grass near the city. There are many green trees with sweet fruits and gurgling streams. In the citadel, a powerful Turkish king reigns. And that same day, the king went hunting in the forest. As he passed through the glade, he saw the sage with his horse and the princess. Before the sage could regain his composure, the king and number 39's servants attacked them, captured him, the princess and the horse, and brought them to the king. Looking at the prisoners, the king saw that the girl was young and beautiful, while her companion was old, ugly and deformed. "What is this old man and number 39's relationship to your family?" the king asked the young girl. Immediately, the philosopher interrupted the princess and said, "She is my wife and also my cousin." Hearing that, the princess cried out, "Your Majesty, he is lying. I swear to Allah, I Dawn and number 39's know him. He is also not my husband or brother. He brought me here by force and fraud." Hearing what the young woman said, the king ordered the deformed old man to be punished, and his servants used sticks to beat him to death. After that, he ordered him to be taken to the city and imprisoned in a dungeon, and the princess and the wooden horse were brought back to the palace. But he didn't and #39's know how to use horses. That and what happened with the sage, the princess, and the magic horse. Now let us see what happened to the prince. He put on his traveling clothes, took his food with him, and set out, dazed with grief. He kept walking, without stopping, trying to find the princess and chasing his horse from country to country, from city to city, asking questions of everyone he met along the way. About the ebony horse and the beautiful maiden. But everyone he asked about the magic horse, only showed surprise at his words. He wandered for a long time around the world, looking for happiness in distant lands, but he could not find any trace of the princess or the horse. Finally, he arrived at the kingdom of the princess and number 39's father, but there was no one there either. Only her father sat in the palace in sadness and suffering because he had to be separated from his daughter. With pain in his heart, the prince left his lover and number 39's kingdom and went to the land of the Turks, continuing his inquiries and finding traces of her. Nearing Earth, the prince stopped at an inn and then walked around the streets. One evening, when returning to the inn, the prince found a crowd of merchants gathered gossiping to pass the time. He sat down next to them and listened attentively. A businessman said, "I have encountered a miracle." "Gentlemen, how miraculous is it?" people asked him. The merchant said, "I was present in a city and heard the people there say, 'The king of this country and his entourage went hunting and saw in the middle of the grassland an old man, a young woman and a horse. Ebony. The old man is ugly and deformed, while the young woman is very fit, beautiful and sexy. As far as the ebony horse is concerned, it is a wonder, the like of which man has never encountered. There is nothing more beautiful and exquisite in this world than that horse. So how did the king treat them? The listeners asked the storyteller. The king asked the old man, and he confirmed that the beautiful girl was his wife and cousin. But the young woman denied it, saying that he was a fraud who had robbed her through deceit. At that time, the king separated the young girl from the old man, then ordered him to beat him with a stick, then imprisoned him in a dungeon. As for what happened to the ebony horse, I Don and number 39, know. Hearing that story, the prince went to the merchant who had just told the story, politely asked him, "What is the kingdom next door called? What is the name of that king, and what is the way to get there?" Having grasped all that, the prince lay down on the bed and slept soundly. Early the next morning, the prince set out. He pushed his horse forward until he finally reached the city gate. He intended to go into the city, but the guards arrested him and took him to the king. The king of this country has a custom: ask all strangers who come to the capital who they are, and what professions they know. But when the prince arrived at the city, it was already dusk, so it was too late to go to the king and answer his questions. After a moment of thought, the escorts decided to take him to prison so he could spend the night there. But the governors, when they saw the boy and number 39's beauty and royal demeanor, did not throw him into an underground bunker, but led him to a palace. They served dinner and invited the prince to eat with them. He ate and drank until he was full. Afterwards, the prison guards talked to the prince and asked him where he came from. The prince replied that he was from Persia, the land of King Khosroy Enusavan, king of Zaksanat, 531,578, famous for centralizing power in his reign. In literature, this name is associated with the image of fair and just leader. Hearing such an answer, the prison guards burst into laughter, and one of them said, "Oh, another subject of Khosroy. I have seen many lands in the city, heard many ancient stories and legends, but never have I heard the thrilling stories created by one of your countrymen here in the dungeon." Another person added, "Surely you have not seen anyone more ugly, deformed and malignant than him. How did my countryman create such thrilling stories?" The prince asks. He asserted that he was a wise man and a physician. The prison guards answered, "Our king saw him out in the glade when he went hunting." This swindler came there with a beautiful young woman, and an ebony horse, and there is nothing more marvelous than that horse in this world. The young girl is now in the palace, because the king loved her passionately, but she was crazy. If that monster and a sage like him were determined, he could have cured her of her madness, because our king really wanted her to be cured. As for the magical horse, they kept it in the king and number 39's treasury. That and number 39's why the deformed old man cried and screamed every night in the dungeon, not allowing us to sleep at all. If you want to know more about the developments, please continue to part 5. Thank you for joining us for today's fairy tale. We hope these stories bring joy and meaning to your day. If you love our channel, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any exciting tales. Wishing you a good night and sweet dreams. See you in the next story.